The Vampire Dies in No Time is a very special show. It is a comedy anime about basically Van Helsing with a vampire roommate. At its core, it is a comedy and a consolidation of 1,000 small stories, kind of like The Disastrous Life of Psyche K or things like that. Not only that, but it's also reminiscent of The Simpsons, meaning it is a contained story. Each episode, most of the time, more or less the characters are left off where they are. Now, the things they play with in this fantastical story is essentially a vampire that seems functionally immortal and invincible, but brittle as all hell. If you scare this vampire, he will combust into ash, but give it a few minutes and he'll regenerate in no time. He also seems to be pretty bad as far as vampires are considered. He can't really morph into a bat really well. He kind of is an otaku recluse that plays a lot of video games and has a cute familiar named John. He's also a little antagonistic and a tiny bit proud, but ultimately good dude. And Ronaldo is basically just Van Helsing, except with a bigger temper, essentially. He also has kind of a Helsing in like vibe as well. He is essentially a hunter and somehow, some way destroyed the Dracula, or Drac, whatever you want to call him, mansion. Therefore, they move in together, begrudgingly so. And wouldn't you know it, Ronaldo actually has a book series written on his exploits. And of course, what is more interesting than a vampire slayer hunter partnering with a full-blown elder vampire? And thus, roommates were born and a new story begins. Now, some things about this world is essentially that vampires are commonplace here. They are rated on an S rank to A rank, leave them alone, to S rank being absolutely deal with them as soon as you possibly can. Of course, Drac is probably on the lower S scale, despite being an elder vampire. Now, that's all good and fine. Interesting idea, fun premise. If you like monster movies, like your boy, you're gonna be in heaven. But one thing I will say is that this show, at its core, is a comedy, very similar to The Simpsons, something like that. Again, contained stories, a consolidation of many little happenings, and yeah, very similar to The Disastrous Life of Psyche K, like I said. Now, the one thing I will say, The Disastrous Life of Psyche K does have it so that characters are moving forward. Yes, it's a consolidation of stories, but it's not like those stories don't have an effect. It might be slight and small, but the things that happen, the engagements that they get into, the friendships and the important moments do in some small way matter. They, bit by bit, dissolve Psyche's exterior. The same cannot be said for this anime, which is why I think it is it's missing that piece for me. And I think if you go into it aware of what it is, you'll have a much better time, which is why I'm telling you this. The characters largely stay the same throughout the entire course of the show, with the exception of course, Ronaldo and Drac basically becoming content with one another. Maybe even slightly friendly. But more, it's just they're both infatuation with John, his familiar, that kind of gets them through the day. But largely nothing has ever really happened. You never really get to see them become great friends and defend each other in a big way. They're always kind of at each other's throats, but it works. It works in a really fun way. But if you are interested in the story of storytelling, not just the contained stories, the goofy happenings, the funny, humorous interactions, all that, then you might feel a little lost if you want something deeper than that, aka characters actually evolving and becoming better versions of themselves. Even though they're goofy and weird, they still grow. They still become great friends. Weird love interests still happen. This world feels like it's continuing this journey upwards and not just kind of linearly going on a horizontal axis, if that makes any sense. So don't go into it thinking it is going to continue to increase its velocity and growth. It might in season 2, which it is greenlit for a season 2. In fact, it is hopefully being dubbed soon here. Regardless, who this show is for is if you like monster movies, if you like goofy humor. I will say this humor felt very fun. It's more on the fun, goofy side than the like hyper-specific, potentially Gen Z type of like goofiness for the sake of goofy crazy. It's also a little risque. Yeah, a lot of the vampire villains that Ronaldo ends up slaying are just perverts, basically, for lack of better, they're perverts. But you know, that's fun, it's goofy, and John must be protected, all that. But I think this is one of those shows that I think a lot of people could just turn on and enjoy. You could watch episode 5 and love it, you could watch episode 12 and really see the same thing, but still enjoyable, nevertheless. If I could have it my way, I would hope that in season 2 we get to see progression within our characters just a little bit more, maybe describing why Drac is an elder vampire and basically an immortal. Maybe Ronaldo and Drac become slightly better friends. Maybe a love interest is introduced and they actually follow up with that slightly. Something to build on, something that makes our story feel like we are basically going slightly up rather than just on a linear axis. But that's my own perception. For those of you guys who have seen the show, what do you think about it? Who do you think this show is exactly for? I think if you like comedy, boom, it's for you. I think if you like goofy fun monster movies, you're gonna have fun. I think if you want to see something weird, this also is pretty damn weird, my guy. Pretty damn weird. Thanks so much for your time. Hopefully I can see you again. I will talk to you for as long as you allow me or until you unsubscribe. Thank you kindly and goodbye.